Hey gang. So, the Cycle Frontier came out not long ago, and I've been dipping my toes in its crystal-laden waters. And by now, I've amounted a decent chunk of time into it, and through all of that, I just keep coming back to the game. And one statement and one question, which perpetually repeat. They are as follows. I really like this game, so why don't I love it? The answer to this question I'll get to later, but before I do, I realize I need to tell you what the Cycle Frontier is and what it's all about. The Cycle Frontier is a PvEVP shooter with loot and limited extraction points dipped in a sci-fi setting. The basic premise is like most extraction games. You land/deploy, you loot things, you extract. Occasionally you'll engage with other players, and more often than not, one of you will loot each other's things. Get people coming into stream, and they say things like, Alan, sell me on this game in one sentence. So far, the best response I've had is calling the game Deep Rock Tarkov, and whilst I certainly didn't coin this phrase, I absolutely agree with it, with the Deep Rock element coming from the game Deep Rock Galactic, a game of mining and mayhem with a sci-fi coating that doesn't take itself too seriously, and one that is a lot more fun with friends, much like the Cycle Frontier. Also, the obvious Tarkov being Escape from Tarkov. A lot of people tell me that there are some Hunt Showdown elements in here also, but you'd be wrong. The only comparison between the Cycle Frontier and Hunt Showdown is that other than the PvEVP environment and firearms, of course, Hunt Showdown also has extraction points marked on the map. That's it. So, what does Deep Rock Tarkov, also known as the Cycle Frontier, do right? What could it improve? And coming back to that question from before, but I'll rephrase it, what's preventing me from loving it? First things first, I want to talk about some of the things that the Cycle Frontier does right. For example, when you're ready to deploy, getting into a game is lightning fast. You choose a map, you choose to ensure your gear or not, similar to Tarkov, you hit deploy, and that's it. You're in. There is a dropping animation, which covers up the loading screen, but aside from that, you'll basically find no loading at all in the Cycle Frontier. It's very smooth. I say when you're ready to deploy because getting yourself to that ready state can take some time. The issue is definitely exacerbated by how spread out vendors are selling certain weapons and how poorly the current weapon attachment system is managed, but that aside, once you're kitted out, say goodbye to 5-minute wait times forever. Once you do deploy and land on the planet of your choosing, your goal is to go in and loot the natural resources of the planet for yourself. This is achieved by looting containers, shelves, bags, backpacks, crates, mining the ground for precious resources and gems like some interplanetary dwarf, and then, when you've got what you need, you take the items gathered and head to an extraction point. If you squint and chant rock and stone the whole time, it sounds a lot like Deep Rock Galactic. You call down a ship, which is visible and audible to everyone on the map, and once it lands, you have a short window of time before it takes off, hopefully with you on it. Again, chanting rock and stone. This is a good system. The extractions are shown from the very beginning, so you know where you're going. You can't possibly get lost. The only thing to navigate is the terrain as you traverse. Loot you require is dictated either by quests you gather for one of the 3 factions in the game, ICA, Osiris, Korolev, or by items you require for your individual hideout. This means if you know where individual loot spawns, for example, you're looking for resin guns, well, you can find them in the Lagoon section of Bright Sands, or the favela in Crescent Falls. This means it's very easy to go in with direction and purpose, rather than mindlessly wandering the map without a clue of what to do and picking up loot just for the sake of it. Although you can definitely do that if you're feeling up to it. Moving on to other things, the environments are vibrant and detailed, full of clutter and detritus and just general wear and tear. I don't want to go so far as to say it really feels lived in, but you get me. You can see the environment has deliberately been designed as if people have been through here in mind. Lootable objects are well highlighted on approach, and if you take your time to scan over a room, you'll eventually hit every lootable object if you're paying attention. At first, you won't know what you require, so you'll just generally loot everything like a goblin. Something that is easier than ever, since the cycle doesn't have bag space per se. You simply have a weight limit. Every item in the game weighs a certain amount, and bigger packbacks just give you extra carrying capacity, not actual storage slots. Guns in the cycle are wide and varied, but only really cosmetically, and they generally fall into the camps of pistol, submachine gun, shotgun, insert automatic / semi-automatic rifle, DMR, sniper, etc. You've seen it all before. There are some exceptions that work within the sci-fi genre as expected, such as a laser beam rifle, but the sci-fi elements of the game in terms of weaponry are really toned down, and they aren't really explored or fleshed out in the munitions outside of the color of the projectiles or the decor of the gun. I'd very much like to see the sci-fi element explored more. You're on an alien planet with bugs and goo-spitting monsters, so give me my gun that shoots goo that can be used as a damaging / area denial tool. Give me my insect barrage gun that covers enemies and stinging insects. Think Halo's Needler. It's a shame to see such a visually visually robust setting as natural sci-fi, kind of like Avatar, be playable in a game, but the weapons still feel like Call of Duty with a different sound effect and coat of paint. That's not entirely a bad thing because the weapons do feel familiar as a result, but you've got a natural sci-fi setting. I'd like to see it used a bit more. Hopefully this will be addressed in future, but for the moment, the guns feel pretty meh. Speaking of guns, at the time of writing, gun balance feels strange. In the right hands, any automatic firing rifle feels competitive against players regardless of rarity. However, the competitiveness of that rifle will differ depending upon your range of engagement. At their design range, that being close to mid-range, you can basically spray down any opponent with any automatic weapon and do well. This means that fights in the cycle generally, I repeat, generally, occur within 10 to 60 meters. You will absolutely have fights at longer ranges. That's why a bolt-action sniper exists and a DMR exists, and 2x scopes and 4x scopes and 6 and 8s, but you'll absolutely you will do that at fights of 100 meters plus. But they're more like pinging contests where players will exchange bullets and medical supplies, with the winner being the person who causes the other to use more resources. Getting a one-tap bolt-action sniper rifle kill across the map is most likely pretty much not going to happen. It can, but a lot of parameters need to exist. You're not going to see someone who's on full health and you're on full health and just one-tap them. Don't really worry about that. The majority of fights take place within these ranges, and healing in the cycle is slow. With any items capable of a full heal, such as the medkits, which will heal you in one charge, they take a long time to use. As a result, once you've been damaged, expect to be pushed, and pushed hard. If you want to sit behind a rock and heal, you are most welcome to do so, but the last thing you'll hear, other than the charging of your med stim, is the sound of people aping you. 1 to 3 people will absolutely rush you down because they want to finish the job. Touching on player count for a moment, you can deploy on a map with up to 2 other players, bringing the total of up to 3 per squad. At the time of writing, parties of 3 or trios are absolutely the way to play this game if you're looking to do well in PvP. Sure, it is possible to go in as a solo, and you absolutely can win a 1v3 scenario, but the majority of the time, it's not a real 1v3. It's more like a 1v1v1, with the players trickling their way to you, and not a dedicated 1v3. Because if 3 players rush 1 player, and those 3 players are even remotely paying attention, the solo is going to lose 9.99999 times out of 10. There is no real reason to queue solo other than bragging rights, or if you just want to play alone because that's how you play your games, or indeed have no friends. The only real advantage a solo player has over a squad is that it's a lot easier to disappear as one person rather than 2 or 3. Running away in the cycle is actually quite a good tactic and very effective, and running away from a squad is definitely a smart approach and a lot easier to do as a solo player. If you have a solo player who is confidently rushing your 3-man team, they're either a god or they're cheating, and sadly the latter is far more common in the cycle frontier, but more on that later. As for things other than player enemies, AI variation is kind of lackluster, with your basic enemies falling into the camp of fast melee nibblers, ranged acid spitters, or tanky bruisers that sometimes spit acid too. There is no real variation on this. Really? I say no real variation because variations do exist, but they're just versions of the original with a bigger health bar and a coat of paint, and they hit a bit harder. They don't possess any new abilities or sounds or anything to really differentiate themselves other than that different coat of paint and health bar. However, I do expect things to change in future. But at the time of writing, you've really just got Geef or the cooler Geef. That's pretty much it. Now, you might be thinking with all these things that I've mentioned that I'm not really enjoying the cycle, and that couldn't be more further from the truth. The variations of guns, whilst limited, I feel familiar with. The AI variation, though not really existent, allows me to know what I'm up against, and I only really have to worry about my pathing or other players instead. So, despite me saying that there is not much variation, I at least know what I'm getting myself into because I don't have much to worry about. All the things that I've touched on so far, I'm more than okay with. Even though I do wish for more to be done, because I can see the potential there, the systems that are in place, I thoroughly enjoy. And this game has been eating my stream schedule so far. So you might be wondering, my question from the beginning of the video, what's preventing me from loving the game? Well, my friends, it's something I too touched on earlier, and that is the cheaters. Now, I don't want to go on some big, long rant and show tons of footage of cheaters being cheaters because you can find that easy enough with a simple Google search. It's everywhere and people know about it. I'm really enjoying the cycle, and I don't feel like flooding this video with clips of dickheads being dickheads would be productive. Okay, maybe one clip. Oh, fuck! Ow! I'm getting murdered. Silence guns. Getting fucking shredded. I'm dead. I'm fucking... Oh, no.
Where?
I don't know. I'm just dead. It's a hacker. I told... Oh, wow. Yeah, with a pistol. The cheater/hacker problem is so... oppressive. for me anyway, that I just can't love this game at the moment. There are two maps of the cycle, right? The easier one being Bright Sands and the harder being Crescent Falls. Crescent Falls has a better loot population in terms of tier of item/item worth and has a greater number of the harder enemy variants. As such, it's the right environment for hackers to exist and just populate it. Every time I go into Crescent Falls, every time I've encountered or am in fear of encountering a cheater. On Bright Sands, if I get into a skirmish with the player, I don't think, oh god, it's a hacker. On Crescent Falls, if I get into a skirmish with someone, I'm like, oh god, please don't beam me. Just don't shoot me through a wall. Don't be too good. Like, let me have an actual fight against you. I've been playing shooters for tens of thousands of hours, and I can tell you I know when someone's hacking, or at least I have a very good idea when someone is just too good. And pretty much without fail, if I play on Crescent Falls, I either get a hacker in the second or third game. I don't think I've ever played or dropped 10 times on Crescent Falls and not got a single hacker, and that is a real shame too. Please remember that I'm on OCE on Australian servers, and as a result, the player base is a little bit different. This might be different for people in the EU or NA, but on OCE servers, I can absolutely assure you, Crescent Falls, tons of cheaters. Now, not all cheaters are as obvious as the clip I showed above, you know, the one that just beams me through walls completely silently while my friend just sits and watches. But the very threat of a cheater prevents me from relaxing and just having fun with the game, because I know that as good as I am at shooters, it doesn't matter when the game was rigged from the start. This feeling of oppression sucks. I don't feel like I can even do my quests on that map because I'm required to kill creatures, of which they are the harder variants. So I have to bring in better weapons or attachments, but I don't feel like I can bring better weapons or attachments in, because if I do, I'm just going to get targeted by a hacker that searches by gear and beams me. Funny enough, the best way to go about playing the harder map is just going with basically nothing, going with horrible gear, so a hacker's not going to find you in their sweep of the map by just searching by gear. You're not going to come on their search, so the only way they're going to find you is just by bumping into you or just, ESP shooting you anyway. It's quite funny that the best way to do the harder map is just to go in with worse gear. That issue alone is the only thing preventing me from loving the Cycle Frontier. Now, to the game's credit, the devs have been super transparent and they've gone on record about their stance and what they'll be doing about cheaters, and that is fantastic. The game is free to play, and I highly, highly, highly encourage you to download it and just give it a crack. I know that the problem with free-to-play games is that the bar of entry is non-existent for cheaters as well. I know that. You ban one account and they'll just make another. That being said, even with the rampant cheater problem, even though I'm essentially limited to 50% of the maps because of said cheaters, I am still really enjoying the Cycle Frontier, and that should show you enough. If I'm limited to playing literally half of the game and still talking about it highly, that should mean something. If I can find enjoyment out of basically 50% of the game, there is a fair chance you'll enjoy it too. Potentially more than I am as well, which is saying a lot. So that's what I think about the Cycle Frontier, at least at current. I'll definitely update and create a new video when Season 2 arrives, and I'll document all the changes and my thoughts on them then. But for now, at least you have an idea how I feel. So download it, play it, shoot some things, loot some stuff, pay attention to the game. You probably won't regret it.